Okay, so in this chapter, we decided not to subject you guys to all those calculations and recalculations that we did for the nHair. So instead, we're going to show you what we usually use for our nHair, starting with hairs per clump. Add 40, and this is for the ponytail hair system. All right, subsegments, we set it to 5, thinning to 0.2, clump twist 0, bend follow is set at 1. All right, clump width we have at 0.2, and that works perfectly for the ponytail, especially where it connects to the wazzle or woogie. Hair width is at 0.10, and of course our clump width scale, if you look correctly here, our spline graph is set to those settings. Our hair width scale, we decided to bring that ending node up just a tad bit. I'll bring it back down. I think that might be overdoing it. Alright, but not all the way down to like 0. 0.160 is fine. Clump flatness, we decided to go with that type of graph. That actually works really well for the hair, especially when they're colliding. Let's see. Interpolation range is still set at 8. Collisions, we have it still at self collide. Our collision flag and self collision flag are at edge. Collide strength 1.5. Max self iterations is at 2, and collision layer is at 0. And we didn't add anything for bounce. Friction though, we added 0.3 for friction. Let's see, stickiness and static cling are also at 0. I don't think we need any of those values for that. Stretch resistance and compression resistance are both at 10. Bend resistance is at 20, however. That was actually working much better instead of the original value. Twist resistance, 0. Extra bend lengths at 0, 1. Rest length scale. Our stiffness scale, as you can see how we have our graphs set up, I would suggest going that way. For any type of hair, as a matter of fact, that's really long, works perfectly for that. As you can see here, this is our simulation, so you can actually see what's happening. Specifically, take a good look at the ponytail. That's where the stiffness scale actually works great for her movement, especially at the beginning part where you can see the wazzle. It doesn't go through the wazzle, which is where this graph works perfectly. So I would suggest using this graph or something similar to this for hair that is just like what we have here. Attraction scale, same thing. Starter track is at 0.040. Attraction damp, as you can see, is at 0. Alright, so let me just jump back into my hair. Scroll down a little bit. Bend model is still set as simple. Forces, as you can see, mass is at 1. Drag is at 0.122. Torrential drag at 0.1. Motion drag is at 0. Damp is at 0.3. Stretch damp, as you can see here, is at 0.1. And dynamics weight is at 1. As for all the other ignore solvers and whatnot, we just turn those off. Shading, as you can see, is still set to its current color. And yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Of course, a preset was saved after we had made all of those changes, so we just applied that. So I'll just show you what I mean. So as you can see, ponytail underscore hair underscore system, and we just did that throughout all of the rest, and of course change the color and so forth. And that was basically it for the ponytails. Alright, so let's see here. Let's go to raven hair. So as you can see, the hair color is changed to black. Alright. The hair color scale, as you can see, we just left it more or less the same, except for the center node that was just brought to the left a little bit. Alright. Let's see. There it is. Right. You can see the main front bangs or center bangs in this case. We did the same thing here. Per clump 40, subsegments at 5, thinning at 0.2. Let's see, clump twist was at 0, as you can see right there. Bend follow at 1. Clump width, however, we made that at 0.099. Hair width scale is, of course, at 10. And as you can see, our graph is more or less set the same way. So it kind of works nicely. And notice that this graph works perfectly with all of the hair that we have here. Right, as you notice how we have our little shadowing and everything, all of that remains. And of course the shape that starts small, then goes out a little wide and goes back small again. Same thing for hair width scale, clump curl, just brought that up to about 0.5. Our clump flatness, as you can see, is laid out pretty much the same way. Collisions, those self-collide, but our collision flag and self-collision flag was set to vertex, mainly because those are at the front and they're going to be moving quite a lot. Collision strength 1.5, max iterations at 2. Self-collide with scale in this case was at 1. Solve display and all the other things, display color, off, bounce. Friction, same values as the ponytail. Stickiness, however, we set that to 2. Mainly because that character is going to be moving quite a lot and you want her hairstyle to stick somewhat the same. Stress resistance and compression resistance and bend resistance we have at the same values, which is 47.6, 74. Everything else beneath that was relatively same. Twist, extra bend, and rest length scale. Stiffness scale, as you can see how we have our graph here, is pretty much different from the others. That we had to put that really high if it was correctly. The character moves around quite a lot. Alright, so we wanted to keep the hairstyle, especially for the center bangs, more or less the same regardless of how the character moves. So when the character does move, or in this case moves less, the hairstyle kind of goes back to what it originally was. Start curve track is 0.04, well, 0.040. Attraction scale, as you can see, our graph, we have 4 nodes on that graph, and you could pretty much set your own the same way. It will work just fine. Alright, let's see, selected value, of course, you know that we have selected is at 1. Bend model simple. And of course, in forces, we have mass at 1, drag at 0.122, torrential drag is at 0.1, motion drag is at 0, and in this case damp is set at 10. Damp is going to be turned up really high for the raven bangs, and of course the front bang. Stretch damp is also set at 0.1, and of course dynamics weight at 1. Alright, hair color, of course, relatively the same as the ponytails. Alright, the hair color scale, as you can see, is slightly different. We decided to bring up the gray area, as you can see there, just a little higher, so you can actually see it right there. So it goes from bright to that dark color. Let's see how that works right there. Let's see. Let me go back to our front view. Alright. Okay. And as you can see, specular color is at 0.3, translucence at 0.5, and opacity at 1. And as you can see here, let me just make this a little larger. It works quite nicely. You know, you still see the shading and the colors and whatnot. And the motion moves pretty good. Alright, the only thing that I would probably change that I'm now looking at it is the Raven bangs. I might increase the iterations in our next chapter, because I noticed that it's kind of going through her cheekbones now that I'm looking at it here. But we'll work on that later on. Alright, I guess I'd probably make that maybe 4 or something like that. But this is fine for now. And in our next chapter, I will be showing you how to make eyelashes.